Hello everyone, welcome along. This is the first video on the channel, so thank you for tuning in. I would like to start by just introducing who I am. I run in the Australia and New Zealand lobbies in Gran Turismo, and I kind of got through Gran Turismo, got back into Gran Turismo through GT Academy. So a few years ago, I was lucky enough with 6 others in Australia to go to the UK in Silverstone and try win the GT Academy competition for the Dubai 24-hour race. So that was a mega experience, and that kind of got me back into GT, and I started kind of entering the FIA races at the end of last year just to get a bit more competitive, and I thought, why not share some of the races with YouTube and make a few videos. And yeah, so anyone that's come along, thank you very much, appreciate it, and I'll try and make it as interesting as possible, hopefully do a few more in the future. And yeah, so this race in particular, this is from the Manufacturers Series a few weeks ago, and this was at Tokyo Expressway. This was I've jumped straight into the quali lap now, so we're on the quali lap as I run a bit deep into that hairpin. But I run the McLaren, and this I think was round 4 or round 5, I can't remember off the top of my head, of the championship. So I'll talk you through at the end of the lap as we run into the last sector. I had a decent lap so far with 1 or 2 mistakes. We'll see Road Rash now runs a bit wide, and he manages to duck out of the way. So we get a clean run into the last corner of the lap, and we actually come across the line and post a 2:03.5, which puts us in provisional second. We end up in 3rd place for the start of the race, and that isn't too bad a result. There were a few errors in that lap, so there was more time in it for sure, but it's this actually wasn't the first race of the night. I'll cut back to the first race of the night, where we were running in a solid 11th place after a pretty poor quali, and we get the inevitable at the hairpin.
Crash! Somebody hit me in the rear, for sake. Honestly, what the are we doing here?
RIP. The funniest thing I think about that is not only getting torpedoed from over a second behind, but to be torpedoed into the pit lane, and then not only that, but receive a 1-second penalty. So quite a humbling experience. Obviously the GT stewards just penalizing my very existence as a human, which is fair enough. I think that's it's a humbling experience. It teaches you lessons. So hopefully this race I won't be torpedoed. It's interesting, obviously Danny Kvyat deciding to use isolation to get on GT Sport, which is good to see him on GT. As we head into the shipyard section here on lap 1, we've got a Porsche coming up the inside of Sist Buffon coming through. A pretty audacious, but confident send. And I thought at this point in the race, we're running on the mediums, so we start the race on the mediums, and the strategy for this race was a 1-stop. So the mediums were mandatory, and obviously there was the soft, which was optional. So I thought we'd start on the medium and get that tyre out of the way, with the idea of obviously starting in 3rd on the grid. We have the draft of the cars ahead of us to drag us along. So the advantage of getting the slower tyre out of the way would hopefully, if we can stay in the draft, be negated. So that's the thinking. So I was quite happy to just let the Porsche by at that point in the race. As we head into the first hairpin, super important to remember that you're in the draft. So when you're heading into that hairpin, it's very easy to outbrake yourself, especially the first few laps in the draft, because you're not used to the longer braking distances, because you're obviously arriving at the corner at a faster speed. So important to keep an eye on that at the start of these races, especially at a race like Tokyo. So we're heading into the final sector. Really fun part of the track to get right. No margin for error, obviously, because you hit the wall if you don't get that part completely bang on. So we finished the first lap. We've lost one position, but we're still in the lead pack, which is all we really need. We've got the two cars up ahead. In front of the Porsche are a Nissan GTR, driven by VLX GTR, appropriately named. He's a really quick driver from Australia in the VLX team, so I've raced a fair bit with him. He's a really good driver. And we've also got Lionface, who is arguably one of the top 3 in New Zealand. He drives the Ferrari. He's a passionate Ferrari man, and that's good to see. As we head through the shipyard section, you'll see GTR up ahead picking up a 0.5 second penalty, and that's just for running 2 tyres across the red and white curbs there. So it's a really strict penalty line, and you've got to be very careful, especially on your quali lap, because one small mistake is I hit the wall there, so that's going to cost me time. But in your quali lap, if you just make a small error, you'll find yourself with your lap completely ruined, because obviously you have to serve the penalty. So GTR is going to have to get rid of that one in the next lap, and he's got obviously 3 cars quite close behind him. So if he can just stay within draft, it shouldn't affect him too much. As we see a bit of action up ahead, Phonon goes around the outside of the Ferrari and the Porsche there, and he tries to he gets a pretty good drive out that last that kind of hairpin. As we head up side by side into the last sector, Phonon holds the car around the outside in quite a spectacular move to get the job done and send it into second place. So shout out to Phonon. If you're watching, well done. That was a really cool move. And he started the race really well. So he's made 2 positions, starting 4th. And with VLX in first having to serve a penalty, he will probably find himself in the lead this lap. So 3 laps in now. I'm closing in on Lionface in that Ferrari. You can see in the rev range down the bottom there that I'm shifting quite early, just to save as much fuel as I can. And sometimes you'll notice as I switch now into different fuel maps. So super important at this part of the race to just think of the long game and try and save fuel, because in the long run it's probably going to save me time than trying to battle a car, you know, to get into 3rd place or 2nd place. As we see, GTR serves the penalty now. He's going to get out of his ghost just before the right-hander. Lionface thinks about a move out the outside, but couldn't quite make it stick. But that was clean driving between the two of them, no contact. So GTR holds second. We've got Phonon in the lead, who's also picked up a 0.5 second penalty, again for crossing those lines. So it's already looking like it's going to be a matter of saving as much fuel as you can and avoiding getting penalties. As we head into this hairpin, naturally there's a bit of a concertina effect as we all kind of close in on one another. We head out, 2nd gear, shifted about half rev range in the McLaren, up into 4th and then 5th. And then you approach this wonderful sector. You just want to go beyond the 50 meter, kind of glide in off throttle. And again, you're just kind of playing with the throttle to control the turn-in angle of the car, which is a really satisfying when you get it right. And we've got a really nice run through those last few corners there. So we've really closed in on the Ferrari ahead of us. We can see we're in fuel map 2 at the moment, and we've got 5.3 laps remaining on the fuel. So we'll definitely need to fill up at the stop. But the thinking is that if we can save more fuel in this stint, we'll be able to fill up less during the stop, and that will mean that the pit stop takes less time. So that could allow us to jump a few cars in the pit stop. So that's what the thinking is at this point in the race. So as we come into this dockyard section again, we'll see Phonon in the Porsche. He's going to have to serve that penalty, and be interesting to see if he can hold first position from the Nissan behind him. As the penalty line comes up through this section here, you can see he's just finished serving it, and he comes out just ahead, so he's managed to hold that lead. So it does suggest, with his pace so far in this race, that he's running the soft tyre. We've also got another Porsche behind us called, by the name of Road Rash, who is also been catching up on this lead pack. So it looks like the Porsche, definitely the Porsche in first place, will be running that soft tyre. So that might give us an advantage in the second stint. Again, we head into the hairpin now. Down into first gear, heavy braking zone. We're scrubbing off a lot of speed, especially in the slipstream there, as we see Captain Muffin, who is behind us in 6th or 7th place. He's gone into the pits. He was also running the medium tyre, so he's gone with the same strategy as we have here. As we head again into this final sector, and everything's pretty stagnant at the moment. So as we cross the line, I'll skip forward ahead now. As we skip forward further on in the lap, as Lionface makes a move into turn 2, and you can see GTR gives him the room. It's very clean driving, it's a clean move, and GTR just slots in behind him. So that's a good move from Lionface. It puts him up into second, and we now have the Nissan directly ahead of us. At this stage of the race, it looks like the Ferrari and the McLaren, both of us, probably have a bit more pace than the Nissan. The Nissan does tend to chew up its front tyres quite a lot. So it looks like GTR might be struggling with the tyres at this point, as we give him a bit of a bump draft. This is a tough area to look for an overtake. It is possible, but it's high risk. So I thought at this point in the race, it wasn't worth taking that risk. So we go for the bump draft. As we actually dive into the pits at this point of the race, we see Lionface does the same, and we both come in on the mediums. But Lionface crucially has 5 litres more fuel at this point. So even with all our fuel saving, the Ferraris managed to save more fuel, which means we're obviously going to be at a disadvantage. So I take the fuel to the diamond. I think Lionface he overfueled to try and have a really aggressive final stint, but we see we come out, that gains me a bit of time, and I end up coming out directly on top of him. And I managed to just squeeze ahead as we run pretty much side by side through that corner, super tight. He wisely decides to fall in line, and that in essence has given me a position. So we're effectively running second place at this point, knowing that the Porsche that was leading is probably on the soft tyre. So we're in a good chance for the lead, but fuel saving is going to be critical. So that's the current situation. The McLaren with its current BOP is not strong on fuel. I gotta say, it's probably the weak point of the car. That's probably one of the best parts about the manufacturer series, though, I think, is that you can learn the car's strengths and weaknesses, and you kind of start driving around those strengths and weaknesses. So it's a more of a challenge than just running, the fastest car like you do in the daily races, and you become a better driver just by picking up on these nuances between the two, or not the two cars, but all the cars in Group 3 and Group 4. So as we head to the back straight now, I'll skip forward once again. So we've got a lap ahead now, so nothing's really happened in that lap. But at this point we're on lap 7, and we've come across some back markers. So we've got the Ford Mustang ahead with G-Dog Banger, and we've got Dylan in the Honda. So at this point, Lionface and myself have been setting some really quick lap times, so it's about negotiating the traffic. This can be quite tricky, especially on a circuit like Tokyo, as Dylan sends himself into the abyss in quite spectacular fashion. I almost followed him, to be honest. I went way too late on the brakes, and that cost me a lot of time against the Ferrari, who's right behind me if you see on that radar. So Dylan, hopefully he's still alive, but we managed to negotiate those two, but we got the Ferrari right behind us. It was definitely a mistake on my part as we head into the last corner here. And I actually make another mistake, so 2 mistakes in like 20 seconds allows the Ferrari to sneak past. So that's pretty bad driving on my part. Not much new there, to be honest. Although it does allow me to at least pick up the tow and save some more fuel, which will obviously be important to get into the end of the race. Maybe you could argue that McLaren might have intentionally, it could be an intentional ploy by the McLaren team to crash the car, kind of like Renault in 2008? I'm going to say, I don't know. In Singapore when they did the crash gate. Bit of that, bit of some dodgy action at McLaren maybe for the fans, just trying to keep it interesting. So I'll stop talking complete nonsense. We'll get back to the race. So I think at this point I'm effectively in P3, probably with the Porsche ahead, and the Nissan I think will be struggling on the tyres, so I think we'll be ahead of the Nissan. That's my prediction, as we're still in the draft of the Ferrari, but we've lost some time. It was a pretty scruffy lap on my part, as this is the important round of pit stops as the leaders come in on their soft tyre. So we were right that they were running the soft tyre. We'll see Phonon coming out on the mediums in the Porsche, but we've managed to jump Phonon, but we've got Road Rash, who was sitting behind us, who's come out in the lead. So a pretty good strategy from Road Rash has allowed him to jump pretty much all of us and come out ahead. So he's obviously got a tyre disadvantage. So Lionface and myself, I think at this point, are effectively we're in a better position, I'd probably say, than the Porsche, as we have 3 laps to catch him, and we've been setting some pretty quick lap times. So Lionface gets a good run through there. He's got the draft. So at this point, you can still see I've got 3.7 laps remaining on the fuel. So Lionface now has got a run on the Porsche, and you can see here he goes for a move. Road Rash defends kind of like a bit Max Verstappen-esque, which sent the Ferrari a little deep into that corner. He managed to pull it up without making any contact. So it was good, clean driving between the two of them. But it was a late defensive move from the Porsche, personally, in my view. But it's still fair, just. And we head now into this back straight, and you can see the Ferrari getting out of the draft. He's having a look, so he's looks like he might make a move coming through this tunnel sector. Obviously on the soft tyre, we've got the tyre advantage, and the power of the slipstream is so powerful here. So you can see he sends it up the inside. Road Rash runs wide, and he collects the barrier, so that's an easy maneuver into second place. So the Porsche has only managed to hold the lead for a lap. So like I predicted, the soft tyre advantage is almost a second a lap, so it's hard to hold position really, unless you can stay in the draft. And if he can stay in our draft now, he's still got a chance obviously for the last. So we'll see how that strategy pans out for him as we head into the end of lap 9, about to start lap 10. on fuel map 3, so still saving that fuel. The soft tyres are holding up pretty nicely. So from all of this, one of the key things about these FIA races, if you're just starting out, it's always good to think about the longer game or the bigger picture, and it's better to kind of drive. You can see throughout most of this race I've tried to not get involved in battles and try and just drive sensibly, avoid mistakes. I still have obviously made them because I can't drive, but the idea is to avoid mistakes and just kind of stay in that lead pack until the last few laps. So we're kind of getting to that point now in the race where things will hopefully start, or they will start hotting up as we battle for the lead. And we've got ourselves in a position to do that just by driving sensibly, being quick enough where we need to, and just staying in that slipstream. So we'll skip forward to the end of the lap. We're on to lap 11 of 12. So it's getting towards the end of the race. We're going to have to start thinking about making a move. And just on cue, the Ferrari runs wide and compromises his exit down this long straight and sweeping left-hander. As we get enough momentum, it's enough to bring us past the Ferrari. I go defensive just to hold that position. I don't want him making a dive up the inside, and I kind of park the car on the apex, and it's enough to give us the lead. So now we're going to head through this sector, hopefully not get a penalty, which we managed to avoid. So we've kept it clean throughout that part of the track all race, which is a big win. And we head into this really important right-hander. You want to be as early as you can on the throttle out of that corner so you can get maximum acceleration into the longest straight on the circuit. And this is obviously coming into the most opportune overtaking area. We see Lionface in the Ferrari behind us on the radar. You can see him, he's actually thinking about making a move up the inside through here. I lift off, and wow, like that was close. So I had to lift, otherwise I would have been sent into a dark realm. I'm not about that darkness, just light and positivity on this channel. So he gets the move done. I could have kept my foot in it. I'm not sure. I think I did the right thing. I think I would have died a painful death there. So he's got the position as we head into the last lap. So we really want to just not make any mistakes as we head into the last lap now. We get a good run on the Ferrari, and we can check the fuel map. We've got 1 lap remaining, and we cross the line obviously with 1 lap to go. So we're right on target at this point. We head into the first corner. It's super tight on the entry. Neither of us make any mistakes, but I get a good run. I think I've probably got a better exit out of there, but I'm saving fuel. I'm in fuel map 2, and at this point I'm closing in, but I think about a move, but I think better of it. At this point I'm thinking potentially the last opportunity is obviously going to be at that hairpin out of the tunnel. So if we can just avoid penalties through the shipyard section here, which we've managed to, that should give us a nice run through into the tunnel if we can nail this right-hander. So it's all about getting this right. I get 2 stabs of the throttle, but the Ferrari runs wide and actually hits that wall, which definitely slows his exit. So now we've got a good run on the Ferrari now, coming into the tunnel. I think about going up the inside. I'm going to try and do what he did to me the lap before, as we go side by side into this over 250 kilometer section. I again lift because I know it'll understeer. I get a bump from Road Rash behind, who's managed to draft us all the way up into the tunnel. I go deep on the brakes around the outside. Can I make it stick? As we exit into the last sector, I managed to get enough run to get alongside him, deep on the brakes into that hairpin, and we head into this side by side. Who's gonna lift? I managed to then get the inside for the left-hander. That's enough. He's still got his nose there, but that's enough to give me the position. So I'm pretty proud of that move. And we go into that last corner. That's a pretty sweet taste when you get a move done on the outside. As somehow I run out of fuel with literally 200 meters to go. I can't believe it. I still can't believe it. So all that work, setting the race up, getting the job done with a pretty good bit of driving from both of us, and then I lose it with running out of fuel with 100 meters to go. So there's a lesson in it, I guess, to take more fuel on at the pit stop. I think that's the key lesson, is I should have fueled up more at the pit stop. I was saving and fuel mapping as much as I could throughout the race to remain competitive. So I think my mistake was in the pit stop. So it's always good to learn. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope it's been an okay first video. Send me a comment, like the video, blah, 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 all that stuff. So take care, peace, and I'll catch you the next one. Cheers.